The reason why you've got no mates is because you've got no third space. And your first and second space have merged. That is how I started a reel that I posted about 4 days ago, entitled No Third Space, Daddy No Mates. And I've hit a nerve here. And maybe it's hit a nerve with you too, if you're in a similar situation. I mean, over 100,000 views, shared 538 times at the moment, and 830 saves. So this has resonated with a lot of people, and my followership has skyrocketed in just a few days. Now, this is not to brag, because when I post something on social media, I don't know if it's going to be popular or not. I'm actually crap at social media. It's a bit of a lottery. But this has resonated, and this is why I'm doing a training on it. I'll start with a quote from a great book by James Clear called Atomic Habits. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And this talk is all about systems. Systems that are going to help us carve out a third space as dads. So before we begin, it's worth setting a bit of context. Everything in this training rests on the same foundation, the 5 pillars that determine whether a man's life actually works over the long term. Those pillars are body, mind, relationship, family, and business. Most men don't neglect these pillars deliberately, they drift. When life compresses into home and work, which is the merge that I talked about, the effects show up unevenly. The body stiffens and slows, the mind never fully switches off, relationships carry more emotional weight than they should, family time is present but thin, business performance becomes reactive instead of deliberate. And this has been a phenomenon that we've never experienced before, since the lockdowns really, let's be honest. This is why a functioning third space doesn't fix one pillar in isolation. It reduces pressure across all 5 pillars by adding structure and separation back into the week. Structure and separation is what we lost when we were allowed to hybrid work. And at the time, it seemed like a blessing. It seemed like a luxury, the convenience of it. But in the long term, that convenience is a curse. And it seems like we're feeling the ramifications of that now. In relation to the 5 pillars, this is the reason why I created the Apex Dad quiz. So it gives you a quick and honest snapshot of how you're currently performing across all 5 pillars, where things are stable and where small cracks are already forming. You don't need to take it now. You could pause the video and take it, but having that picture in your mind will make what follows far clearer. A link for that will be below this video/podcast in the show notes. And let me give you an overview of what we're going to discuss. First, we're going to define the North Star. Then we're going to go into how we live in a way that supports it, set the conditions, deal with the resistance, let it become normal, review it, and then actions. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time at the end on the actions, because information is great, but how we apply it is key. Nothing changes, nothing changes. Third space, a dad's North Star. I'm a big Frank Miller fan, as in the chap who, Frank Miller's Batman. So I like his illustrations, and this is inspired by Frank Miller. To define the North Star, most men don't struggle because they lack effort. They struggle because their lives have lost a clear reference point. For many dads, life now runs between 2 locations, home and work. Over time, those spaces overlap. You work from the kitchen table, you parent between calls, you are present everywhere, but finished nowhere. Especially the fact that we've got a mobile phone. It's a blessing and a curse. Because I know I find myself sometimes saying to my missus, I'm just quickly sending a message or replying to an email. And I'm half listening to her, half playing with the kids. So we always feel like we're never really finished. There's no clear structure and lines that divide our tasks and our environments. Nothing is obviously broken, but the shape of life changes. A North Star exists to prevent that. It isn't a goal. It isn't something to chase. It's a steady point you use to orientate decisions when everything else feels crowded. In simple terms, it answers this question: what needs to stay in place for my life to work properly? The third space sits underneath the North Star. It is a regular place outside home and work where you're not performing a role. When it disappears, this pressure doesn't vanish. It moves, usually into your body, your head, or your relationship. A workable North Star supports all 5 pillars. Ignore one for long enough, and the rest carry the cost. The body. Movement that isn't rushed or squeezed in. A reason to leave the house that involves using your body. The mind. A pause from constant low-level attention. Space to think without interruption. Your relationship. Less emotional spillover at home. Fewer small frictions caused by constant proximity. Your family. A dad who comes back steadier than he left. And that is very important. We'll go over again about that at the end. Children who see balance, not quite depletion. And finally, business. Clearer thinking from stepping away. Better decisions made without distance, also with distance. And this is what the third space gives our 5 pillars. In order to action this, we need to first take what you might call an audit to see where we're at, where we want to be going, and to give ourselves some time constraints in order to get there. So for that, we follow the actual becoming time, the ABT framework. It's a very simple structure. The ABT framework moves you from honestly assessing your current reality, which is the actual part, to defining the version of your life you're becoming. That's the becoming part. And then locking it in by assigning fixing time. Because without structure, insight never turns into change. Quick overview. Actual. What does your week currently look like? Where do you go that isn't home or work? Who do you see regularly without a task attached? Becoming. One fixed third space each week. A place where your absence would be noticed. A rhythm that doesn't change unless it has to. Time. Choose when this becomes part of your week. If it keeps moving, it won't last. Understanding this helps, but it doesn't change much on its own. I'm going to show you in detail how to implement these changes at the end of this talk. But for now, a useful question is whether your current setup actually supports the 5 pillars you care about. Tea break. So we need to live in a way that supports our 5 pillars. Most guys try to add something like this without changing how they live. They still cancel when tired. They still negotiate with themselves. They still treat their own stability as optional. And over time, the third space fades. This isn't about discipline. This is about consistency. A North Star only works if your behavior lines up with it most of the time. That usually means one shift. Shifting from, I'll go if I feel like it, to This is part of my week. You're not trying to recreate life before children. You're building a version of adulthood that can support pressure across all 5 pillars without collapsing. If you're unsure which pillar is currently carrying too much weight, that's why we use the Apex Dad scorecard, the quiz. Again, that's in the notes below. So we must set the condition. Most behavior follows the conditions around it. People don't do what's best, they do what's easiest. If staying home is easier than leaving, staying home will win. So this is referencing low friction and high friction tasks. Low friction task would be sitting on the couch, scrolling, watching rubbish, and ordering a takeaway. It's easy, it's convenient, it gives you instant gratification. High friction tasks might be going to the gym, but it also might be going into a social situation that makes you feel slightly anxious. So, for example, if we're going along to a gym class with a group, or you might be trying jiu-jitsu or a running club, or walking club even, having to have conversations with other grown men that aren't your mates, that's high friction because you feel anxious about it. But these high friction activities, going gym, socializing, making your own meals that take effort and a bit of time, give you the reward. There's delayed gratification. And that's what we're talking about when it comes to setting the conditions that make taking the high friction path a little bit easier. Why this happens, it's not because you don't care. So why do we fall into low friction activity? It's not because you don't care. It's not because you lack discipline. It's because the environment is doing the deciding. What a third space needs, a third space doesn't survive on good intentions. It survives when friction is removed and expectations are clear. A fixed time in the week. Other people who expect you to be there, and the decision is made earlier, not in the moment. For example, a fixed time each week. You put it into your diary. I have a shared diary with my wife. So she can see, just like we got a slot for the kids to go ballet or gymnastics or swimming, there is a slot for me to do my third space. My third space is jiu-jitsu, by the way. I'm not promoting jiu-jitsu because I can get a bit boring when I start harping on about it, but I never thought, I wasn't a tough kid growing up at all. I never thought I'd get into it, but I'm going down a rabbit hole here. But basically that's what I do, right? But it seems when I'm going to do it, like it's not necessary. I could be doing more important tasks, like maybe working or relaxing. It's raining outside. I don't want to get in the car or cycle there. I do feel slightly anxious, but there's going to be resistance. But because it's in the diary, my wife can see it, I can see it. It's as important as any other meeting, whether it's a Zoom call with a colleague, work, or it's taking the kids somewhere. And other people expect you to be there. Because going to the gym is great on your own, right? It's brilliant for self-preservation, mental health. But no one's going to notice if you're not there. Unless you get over the anxiety of speaking to people. But if you do a group activity where people will notice if you're not there because you contribute towards the group, you're going to feel that obligation to not let people down. And finally, decisions made easier if it's done earlier than in the moment. So what I do is I put my jiu-jitsu stuff by the bed. So when I wake up, I put it on straight away, and then my dressing gown over it, go downstairs, make a cup of coffee. But it's immediate. I'm removing that friction of having to go find my gear, My bag is already packed, my towel is in it, and that makes it so much easier, reducing friction. So the real shift comes when conditions are right and consistency feels natural. When they aren't, even good plans quietly fade. The goal isn't to push harder, it's to make showing up the default. These are the practical adjustments that you can make. So notifications are off before you leave. I'll give you an example. You reduce last-minute emotional hooks, messages, emails, and alerts that pull you back into work or home. Problems right when you need momentum. Silence creates psychological separation before you even step out the door. So when I go to leave for jiu-jitsu, I put my phone on silent. Notifications are on. When I get there, I'm not faffing around with my phone. Now, I'm guilty. I will take a picture to obviously post on Instagram, but I don't need Wi-Fi or Bluetooth for that. And therefore, I'm not checking my phone between rounds, between drills. I have a complete separation between my work and my third space. And because I'm going somewhere, a separation between my home and my third space. So secondly, clothes or gear are ready early in the day. As I mentioned, decisions drain energy. When your kit is already laid out, you remove one more excuse. You're not deciding whether to go, you're just executing what's already been set up. And finally, for practical adjustments, no sitting down. Here's a big one, just before it's time to go. Sitting triggers day is done mode. The body relaxes, the mind negotiates, and leaving suddenly feels harder than it did 10 minutes earlier. Stay upright, stay in motion, leave on momentum. Now, I tend to train in the morning, do my third space in the morning, but some people prefer to do it in the evening. So when you get home, don't sit down. Even better, don't go home, if that's possible. Go straight from your work to your third space and then home. So across the 5 pillars, body, is movement built into the week or left to chance? Mind, is there any quiet space at all? Relationship, is time apart assumed or negotiated? Now, just on that, I don't have to negotiate my third space because it's in the diary, as you know. Family, does your routine allow you to return with energy? I believe that slogging away in the gym for hours is not good. But instead, you do an activity that gives you energy. And that's really individual. Because for me, when I finish jiu-jitsu, and I hope you speak as passionately about your third space when you find it or if you're trying to get there more. But when I finish, before jiu-jitsu, I feel like life is slightly black and white. There's a bit of colour here and there. When I leave, I feel like I can see in technicolor. I feel like I can smell a rose from 1,000 miles. And my senses are heightened. I feel alive more than anything else you can do in life. And that's for me. Now, that's not for everyone. But what third space is going to give you that feeling? And as I mentioned, you'll feel even better if that third space gives you a bit of anxiety. And trust me when I say, a 200-pound or 250-pound man sitting on you for an hour, it will give you anxiety. Or a 17-year-old strangling you will give you anxiety. But when you survive it, you feel amazing. And finally, on across the 5 pillars, business. Do you ever step far away enough to think clearly? Nothing is needed to be perfect. It just needs to point in the same direction. So when I say about step away far enough to think clearly, some people do activities. I know one lad who has jiu-jitsu, comes to his work, like a coach comes in. It's better than nothing, but I believe it is good to have that separation. It is important, I believe, as well as you get on with your colleagues, to have people outside of work, outside of your home, that you socialize with. Because if you put all your eggs into work in terms of socializing, you go out for your workmates, you train with your workmates, what happens when you leave or you leave? Right? That all your friends, all your mates are workmates, and then you've got no mates. So it is important to not put all your eggs into one basket. And also, when you go to a running club or jiu-jitsu or whatever, you're going to meet people in different walks of life that you would never have met at work. It could even create business opportunities and networking. Plus, as well, when you're socializing with work people, a lot of the time there's a layer of being conscious of what they might think of you, saying the right thing, either to you or you feeling you might have to say the right thing to them. You can't fully relax, in my experience. Deal with resistance. Dun, dun, dun. The main obstacle is rarely time. It's hesitation. The moment before you leave, when staying feels easier. It usually sounds reasonable. Like, I'm tired. It's been a long day. I'll go next week. Hesitation is the enemy. Make sure you notice it. For a week, pay attention to when you cancel, what reason appears, what you feel just before it. And here's a few rules. Don't decide in the final hour. Going isn't dependent on mood. Guilt can be noticed without being followed. Have a conversation at home early. Clear structure reduces tension better than reassurance ever does. I heard someone say the other day, should I swear? I don't know. F your feelings. That's what they said. How you feel doesn't matter. Because as a dad, you're going to be very tired most of the time. And I go through this. I go to jiu-jitsu and I think I'm wrestling someone. I'm like, oh God, I've slept 3 hours last night and that was broken. And this person I'm wrestling slept 10 hours maybe. And also they're half my age maybe. And I feel like, if I had a good night's sleep, I'd do better than this. That's going to creep in. But what I do instead, I remind myself, how many men my age, with my kids, with the amount of kids I have at their age, with as little sleep as I have, are here doing this right now. When you ask yourself that question, you realize you are the 1%. You can't compare yourself to a 20-year-old who's sleeping 8-10 hours a day and got no kids. Okay, just a review of what we've gone through, a little recap, and then we're going to go into finish with some actions. So we've gone through the overview, we defined the North Star, how we live in a way that supports it, how we set the conditions, how we deal with resistance, and how we let it become normal. Actions. Predictability beats intensity. Decide how you relate to this new way of living. So say to yourself, I'm a dad with a third space. I don't negotiate with it, I protect it. Block the time. Remove the small frictions and stop redeciding each week. When you install it, keep it simple. One fixed commitment. A recurring slot in your week. Same day, same time, same place where possible. Not something you fit in around everything else. For example, every Tuesday at 7 p.m, I play five-a-side. Every Thursday morning, I lift weights. Every Sunday, I walk with the same two dads, or the first Wednesday of every month, I go to a pub quiz. Don't have to drink, by the way. What matters isn't what it is, it's that it repeats, it's predictable, and your absence would be noticed. If it moves around each week, it doesn't become a third space. It just stays a plan. Have one initiation message if needed. So you don't wait to be invited. You don't assume someone else will organize it. You send out one short message to keep the thing alive. For example, I'm heading down on Tuesday as usual. You in? Still on for Thursday morning? Or same plan this week? That's it. Not long explanations or emotional check-ins or justifying why it matters. The message isn't about convincing people. It's about maintaining continuity. Over time, you'll need this less. But early on, it stops momentum from quietly dying. One proper conversation each time. So, before I go into that, I know as fellas, I'm rubbish at texting. And I don't like speaking on the phone. When I text, I keep it pretty brief. I don't really use emojis. But if you don't have someone in your group who is that person, who's confirming things, double checking things, you need to be that person. Otherwise it will fall apart. So take on that responsibility of simply sending a text saying, we're good for tomorrow, lads. And that's enough. So when you get to your third space, have one proper conversation each time. Not only small talk, okay? Listen, small talk. The pros of small talk is it makes the receiver feel comfortable if they're engaged in small talk, like the weather, etc. The cons is you will never build a connection with just small talk. But it is a skill. And it's actually something I need to practice, is getting better at small talk. But it shouldn't be only small talk. No logistics. No work admin. No joking around for 2 hours without saying anything real. You know, you meet those lads, and I used to be guilty of this when I was younger, who everything is a joke. It almost feels like they're playing a character. I was thinking about someone like this today, actually, and how I could never really like him because he was always like the joker. And I thought, oh, this guy's a waste of time, because it's just like, I've met him so many times. We worked in the same place. Oh, you fell off my chair. But I think it's a defense mechanism, as the Americans might say. But yeah, one conversation each time. No small talk, no logistics, no work admin. So if someone asks you what you do for a living, you can tell them, but don't go into detail. You know, people, if you want people to like you, no, let me put this another way. If you want people to think you're interested, start again. If you want people to think you're interesting, you need to be interested in them. People like talking about themselves. So get good at asking questions, but it's give and take. When you ask, you're expecting something from them, but you also need to give something back. So what I do, for example, is I won't say, what's your name? Because I'm asking without giving. Instead, I'll say, my name's Kevin, what's yours? Simple as that. So this means you ask a question and actually listen. You talk about something that matters to one of you. So you're not going to have everything in common, even if it's just for 5 minutes. So these actions that you're implementing, track them for 8 weeks. And after that, note how many meetups you've attended and what's changed in your 5 pillars. If you're not sure how your life stacks up against those 5 pillars, then click the link below and take the Apex Dad quiz.